This is day 14 of 33 days of Metamorphosis with me, Jelelle Awen. And today is day 14. Yes, I just said that. I was feeling about feeling. And I've written about this quite a bit. About feeling, about emotions. And one of my most popular writings was very simple heading. It was called "It's Okay Not to Be Okay." And I was surprised at the response to that writing and a card that I had created as well that went along with it. And I think why it moved people, why it touched people, is that it was really a permission to not be okay. And I didn't feel that I personally was offering permission, as much as it seemed from the higher self offering permission, or from the divine, or from one part of you to another part of you. Basically, the sense of it's okay not to be okay. And in fact, it's a very real thing about us. So I just wanted to read a little bit of that writing and then weave in some of my own comments connected to it as well. And I'll share the link to this in the description so you can take it in if you'd like to. It's okay not to be okay. Putting down the masks of OKness, or being positive all the time. Being vulnerable to show what is really going on in your heart. Sharing your tears, your fears, your concerns, and your pain with those who can feel you. Being real with what parts of you are feeling and reacting to in every moment. This self-permission space allows the feelings to be felt, and eventually to heal. Why do we need to receive this self-permission to feel? The 3D world operates on the suppression of vulnerable feeling. Analyzing feelings rather than actually dropping into the emotive ground of them. Numbing and drugging our feelings with anti-feeling drugs, relating to emotions as if we need to go into battle with them, as if they are diseases and illnesses that need a cure, as if they are evidence of our brokenness. Your feelings offer a story, an important telling of what parts of you have experienced in 3D reality and what may remain emotionally undigested. And they tell a soul story too, often from other lifetimes even. Big emotional charge there sometimes, that is waiting for bridging and to be felt and held and responded to. It's okay not to be okay. If you had been told this, offered this in childhood, rather than the 3D message of get over it, don't be so sensitive, stop crying, you could have naturally learned how to hold space for your feelings and the parts of you that feel them. Instead, parts of you learn to protect and defend your feelings, to turn the judgment of your feelings inward and develop a punishing energy, what we call an inner punisher, that carries the message inside of your unworthiness, for which the feelings are proof of somehow. The most amazing high frequencies of bliss and joy find more room is made for their arising when the deeper pains are being felt. When no feelings are being denied, there is no energy going toward suppression, no energy toward transcendence of feelings. Then your heart space opens for yourself, for these parts of you that need you. And bliss can flood in again, finding rich, grounded soil in your opening heart. The divine wants you to feel yourself and all that calls your heart to respond to it. Divine love supports this process of not being okay, being real about it, and the dive-in exploration of it too. The divine wants the pains of the 3D experiment to be felt and moved as more of its essence can be let in, which is actually your essence as infinite love, returning to you as a felt reality the more and more you are willing to feel what is real. So, there is, in my experience, this ongoing invitation from the divine to feel our feelings. I believe, especially in many spirituality offerings, it is about finding the bliss, finding the positive, transcending feelings, not letting yourself get down too low into feelings. And my sense is that this has created a gap inside of us. So we may have these spiritual awakenings that give us tastes of this 5D bliss reality, but then we have our emotional body, which remains untouched and unfelt, other than in moments of triggering and reactivity, when all of a sudden all of these feelings come out, and you may ask yourself or feel, why am I feeling so much? I've been meditating so hard, and I've been doing my yoga. I've been thinking only positive thoughts. Why do I feel like this? Our answer in Soulful Heart would be because there are parts of you that live in the emotional body where emotions are their reality. And as I've talked about previously, they're also stuck in certain scenes in your life that hold emotional charge, that hold emotional energy. And we can think in terms of energy if we want to. I certainly see the correlate and have seen it over the years in myself and others, that the energy of, for example, if I asked you to tell me about a painful scene in your childhood, I just go there for a moment. If I asked you that question, what is something painful from your childhood? I bet that within seconds you could come up with something, and it would actually surprise you at the depth and the details of what you could feel about that scene. So it could be a scene from a holiday, for example, that was very traumatic for parts of you, for your inner child. Maybe you didn't get any presents that year, or maybe you were being punished that year, and that comes to you. Or you were bullied a lot in school, and so you're remembering, suddenly you get this, you're in this scene of being bullied. One of them for me, for my parts, was, I believe I was always a vegetarian. That's just what I tended toward. It just took me a while to get there. But I just remember suffering over eating meat. Like I would sit at the table with this warm glass of milk and whatever meat I was trying to get down. I didn't even like fish particularly. So I would eat the fish, and I would take a sip of the milk and try to get it down. And my parents would have me sit there for hours until that food was eaten. And for my inner child, who I came to know very well, that was a moment that I was stuck in, and there was a lot of feelings in that, like powerlessness, My soul didn't get to express there and say, I don't want to eat animals. That's not what my soul wants. Of course, one of the very first parts I ever worked with was a part that was stuck in the scene of when my parents got divorced. And the night that they told me, and I could feel her so viscerally that she was still there in my bedroom with the canopy bed and my stuffed animals around her. And she was in so much pain and so much hurt. And her name was Evie. And I went to her. In this process of working with parts, you go to them to connect to these scenes. You go into the scenes with them, only this time you bring your loving 5D self, this parental loving energy with you, and you feel with them. So I couldn't tell this poor hurting part of myself that it's not okay that you're feeling anything. This is what was told to her. Not directly by my parents at that time, but it was so awkward for them. They weren't really feeling their own feelings around the divorce, and so all my mother could really offer was, I'm sorry and I love you. She couldn't really feel me because she wasn't really feeling herself. So there was this trauma that was still there for this part of me. And when I felt this, I realized how that hurtness, this was maybe 13 years ago when I started my parts process, that hurtness was underlying all of my relationships and my relationship to myself and my relationship to life. It kind of undergirded everything. And I just felt her. We cried and cried on that canopy bed together. And it had many layers to it, which I have discovered over the years. So when I say it's okay not to be okay, I'm speaking to your current reality, giving yourself the space and permission, self-permission to feel what comes up. But I'm also speaking to the parts of you that feel things, that feel a lot of things, and not having a judgment about when these things happened or that they're in the past, you need to get over them. As we've said before, there is no past in the emotional body. There's no linear time. For this Evie part of me, it was like yesterday. And I had seen some counselors over the years, and I had talked about my parents' divorce. This is another distinction I want to make with what we're offering in the Soulful Heart process. I had talked about it, but I hadn't felt it very deeply. So connecting with this hurt part of connecting with Evie allowed me to actually feel it. It teleported me to that time with her, to be with her. And that is what moved it. That's what she needed. She didn't need a drug telling her that she shouldn't feel. Didn't need hours of analysis with a therapist. What she needed was to be felt. And that's what I did. And what that opened out in my heart space was amazing. And that's just one of many, many movements and processes that share that theme of being willing to feel and feel with parts of yourself. So not just, as I mentioned in the writing, not just this life either. At some point, this life is critical to go into. It's a big part of our process that we work with people in the session space. And yet also we're awakening. So the soul bleeds are coming through, what we call metasoul aspects are coming through from other timelines. These are not past lives. These are not past either. They're now. So they have a lot of energy and they have a lot of emotions. People don't often talk about karma connected to emotions. It's almost like karma is just energy. I'm going to heal karma. Like it's an energetic movement. which is an aspect of it. But karma is a lot of feeling. It usually connects to unworthiness, shame, self-punishment, guilt, abandonment, all kinds of feelings, rage, all kinds of things connected to this. And in our soulful heart process, we feel these metasoul aspects as well. We really feel them. It's a very boundaried kind of feeling because their energies can be very intense. And it's kind of like the relationship I described with Evie, my most recent metasoul sister aspect, other timeline aspect, was from Ireland, and her name was Beatrice. Her name is Beatrice. And she had pain around a betrayal from Raphael's metasoul brother. A lifetime that I shared, a timeline that I share with Raphael's metasoul. So this betrayal feeling of being betrayed was quite heavy in her, and I just felt that with her. And what I noticed over the years is that I'm able to be much more fluid with my feelings because I don't suppress anything. I go in and I go through and I hold the space. And I know a lot more people are advocating for this now, what I'm talking about. What's unique about Soulful Heart is that we offer a way to be with feeling. A way. So without this parts separation, either a part from this life or a metasoul aspect, you just become the feeling. And just becoming the feeling is what we call fused. So you just become the hurt, you become the rage, you become the depression. This is what leads to suffering over suffering. There's no space. So just becoming the emotion, you just collapse into it. We help you with feeling the emotion. It's not that you become more witness to it, I could use those words, but you're a very loving and compassionate witness. You're not just, I am witnessing my pain from up here down there and judging it in any way, shape, or form. When you feel the pain that parts of you are in and metasoul aspects are in, your response is compassion. You can't help it because the pain is so real and sometimes so deep. So if you consider yourself a healer, what you would offer to someone else that's in pain. If you see a little child in pain, how do you react? So you turn that reaction, that response of compassion that you would offer someone else when they're feeling something, you turn it toward yourself and parts of you. And you become truly space holder to yourself. There was no one else that could have offered this Evie part of me that I mentioned, what she needed, other than me. My facilitator at the time, and I worked with for about 5 or 6 years with facilitators in parts work. And my facilitator offered this beautiful template of how to be this way with my parts. But really what Evie needed was me. She needed to feel me. And then she could start to rest and eventually integrate it into my Jelelle-ness. That's what happens too, is these parts integrate. So let's say you have a part that has extreme depression. You, instead of suppressing the depression, especially depression, which is so often given drugs, like antidepressants, for example, instead you would feel this as a part. And what is this depression? Where does it come from? What is it trying to tell you? What scenes in your childhood does it live in? Depression is often connected to our inner teenager, who very often felt powerless, who was awakening. The soul was coming in during teenage time. Often we had no way of expressing that. I had a lot of depression feelings as a teenager, and I've worked a lot of that ground through different parts of me, and now realizing more of the soul pieces connected with that as well. So there can be so many layers to what we just label as a feeling and judge it. It actually is like a beacon. I get very interested when I'm feeling something because what does it mean? And this many years in, I don't have as many emotional movements or reactions or processes. So when they do come up, because a lot of it's been cleared in the way that I described, by feeling the parts deeply. So when I do have something, it's interesting to me. It's not something that I go to battle with. That's the other piece that I mentioned in my writing too, is what is your relationship to your feelings? So if part of you, particularly a part we call the inner punisher, is relating to the feelings, then they tend to go to battle with them in various ways. That could be trying to numb them. Really, this is going to battle with the parts too. So if there's a hurting inner child, the punisher is not appreciating that very much. Maybe keeping you from doing things it wants you to do, or it's causing depression, it's causing hurt, it's causing looping patterns in your relationships. So if it's this punisher or the protector that we've been talking about that is relating with the feelings, then it's going to be judging them. It's going to be trying to suppress them. It's going to be pushing them down rather than allowing them to be. So in our soulful heart process, we start with the protector and start with you getting to know them so that you can then negotiate to get to know and feel like a part that I described, like an inner child or an inner teenager. So it's really the guard at the door of feeling. And you may be watching this saying, well, I feel lots of things. And again, the question is, are you just becoming those feelings with no space around it? And do you have a way of understanding where the feelings are actually coming from? In my experience, reactions to things that happen in our life are hardly ever about the present moment. They almost always connect to something from our childhood and from other lifetimes. So to just say, I felt hurt, I got in an argument with my husband and I felt hurt. There is a trigger that came from that argument, but there is a deeper exploration as to where that hurt actually comes from and is sourced in. And it's that deeper exploration that we take you into in this process. So I will finish for today and just leave you with that invitation to feel that it's okay not to be okay. Thank you for joining me.